Okay, I'm not going to just read from this, don't worry. I didn't plan, so I got some bullet points I want to bring up.
Anarchy.
Spontaneous order.
I don't need plans.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
The thing that I want to talk about is how we get from where we are now to our lovely idea of what voluntarism, our world of everything's peaceful and people are happier and more prosperous and all that stuff, right? That some might say is utopia, but I think there's still going to be, problems that we can deal with. But how do we get there? And I mean, most of the voluntarists that I met, they want to get there in a peaceful manner. And we don't necessarily think, and now I'm going to just speak for myself, I don't necessarily think that we can, that it's right to get there via any kind of violence, because that's like building a foundation of, that's a foundation of violence and then building on top of that peace, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And of course we could go philosophical and practical with that, and in both directions I just see it not working. So from my perspective there are many ways, and so I'm going to just put out there some of the ways that I think of, and that many of them I'm working on, and as I state each one, I want to go ahead and get a little bit of feedback before I go on to the next one. So the first one is educate yourself. So I think that it's important that as much as we can, we read some of the classics and some of the new people, and learn about things like economics and philosophy and all that stuff. And I can name some authors like Rothbard or Bastiat or Hayek. There's a bunch. Okay, so I've written them down, so great. Larkin Rose is a newer guy that I don't know who's heard of him. I love a book that he wrote all about authority. It's called The Most Dangerous Suspicion. And it's really thin, easy read.
Superstition.
Superstition, yeah, the most dangerous superstition. Adam Kokesh, he actually wrote a book called Freedom that's really thin and hard-hitting. I think it's great for newbies. Like if you have a libertarian friend or whatever, they don't even have to be anything but voluntarists. I would hand them that book. With us, it's kind of speaking to the choir, but it's succinct and it nails every point that I can think of that you will encounter when you're talking to a statist. And yeah, so that's Adam Kokesh. And Economics in One Lesson, to me, is the best book in economics that I've read, as far as just being really simple and easy to grok and fast read. And there's stuff that goes deeper, Mises, Bastiat, Hayek, Rothbard, like I said. Okay, so that's the educate yourself part. And I'm going to pause now, and I'd like to get any kind of comments that people might have.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to throw out there that I think that the first thing you brought up, which is the whole using violence to try and create a peaceful society, right? That's I think that was a really good way to start, because I think that's something that a lot of us in here struggle with. Is my experience, I mean, the connotation of anarchism and anarchists is that we want chaos and that we're generally violent, but in fact, most anarchists and libertarians, I mean, they're the most peaceful people I've ever encountered, and that's all we want is peace for everyone. But a lot of us, I think that I've interacted with, even I struggle with this. It's hard to see how can we get to that without at some point there being violence. And I think you brought up a good point that it sets a kind of an awkward foundation, and probably one that may or may not work well. So I think it's a cool point, and it's something that I've thought a lot about and struggle with, to see how we get to the other side without some form of violence, even though it's counter to the overall goal.
Thank you. Anybody else on that one? Want to throw in an author or a book that you've read you really think people
Samuel
should...
Konkin.
Konkin.
Yeah, Konkin stuff for the people interested in agorism was something I recently...
Konkin.
For me, it was mostly Molyneux.
Molyneux, Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, that's great. And also, Derek Rose has this book, The Conscious Resistance, that they sell here. I just started it, but I really love it. Like page 1, right off the bat, it's really cheap.
Derek Rose, a local and
Yeah.
the conscious
Resistance.
resistance.
He's also got a website called The Conscious Resistance.
And go to his website.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff.
Okay, I want to move on. No, I mean, that was great too. Yeah. Media and propaganda, I think, are powerful, and so with like animations, articles, conversations, we can change minds. I tend to believe that little things matter. They stack up. So often, people are like, well, I don't want to do anything because, what do I matter? I'm just one person. But I really think that every single person, you talk to somebody and you might turn them on to a whole new world that they've never even thought of, and who are they going to tell? Okay? So I think little things matter. So any kind of media, if it's just debates online, resharing something, liking an article, even that I think can help. Even though it's tiny, it can help. Okay, so communication and empathy. So that goes really deep. I could talk hours on that, but I'll try to keep it short. I mean, what I write here is like, spreading it using nonviolent communication is one tool that I enjoy. It's a book called Nonviolent Communication, and really it's a great way of solving conflict, communicating in a way that shows you're respecting choice. Like nonviolent communication, the way it overlaps voluntarism in a big way in the whole choice department especially. So I'd investigate that, and you can talk to me about that. I've written some articles that talk all about how they intersect and how it helps. Before that, peaceful parenting. So, and that also has a lot of overlap. But right there, if we're looking at wanting to create a world down the road and peacefully, then if we raise our kids in a peaceful manner, and that is not, it's not permissive parenting, okay? That's where I think a lot of people, and it's like, usually it's conservatives or whatever, that I've got to reassure that peaceful parenting is not permissive. It's a recognition, for one thing, of a kid having autonomy and wanting pretty normal, the things that adults want, but they just can't speak it. So if you think about it, an example I like to give is like, most children in our culture, before they can speak, they're picked up and moved and told when to wake up and go to bed and what to eat, and they're controlled. And if you put yourself in that situation, and I think you might find that you're pretty frustrated. You might have a tantrum from time to time. But again, that's a topic that could go on forever, and I want to keep moving. Okay, now I'm going to pause now for some comments or questions, because I've gone over a couple things.
I have a quick comment on children, and I'm actually a dog walker, and I see the same thing in dogs. Like, people are putting their dogs in these pens all day, and then get upset when like they get home and they act out, or like they ripped up their pillow, or like spilled their water. It's like, what do you expect if you take away all their autonomy, take away their decision-making power, and of course they're gonna have a tantrum, just like you said with children. So I think it extends to other creatures too.
Sure, yeah. And people, it's like, I like to think everybody sees everything, or people see things, and so you see somebody, it bugs me when I see somebody struggling with this animal down the street. I'm not an animal rights activist whatsoever, but still there's this symbolism there.
Sure, if they're treating dogs like that, how are they treating the people in their lives too?
Oh yeah, and that reminds me of the peaceful parenting thing. I spoke to a libertarian leaning toward voluntarism the other day, and he was talking about how he was controlling his kid in all these ways. And I asked him, he took it okay. Well, we'll see how he took it. But it's funny to me. It's a matter of integrity, and not that everybody has to have the same value for integrity that I do. But there, I think it's kind of funny. Somebody's like they're controlling their child in various ways that they don't really have to if they're to think long enough and come up with other strategies. And yet they want their child to grow up to be a person who will be independent and not bow down to authority and all that. So I think that's kind of funny. Okay, state education. So there, I recommend looking into homeschooling and even unschooling. If y'all don't know what that is, again, that's something that's all about respecting another human being's autonomy more than anything else, and even sort of the belief that all people tend to be curious, and that a child will be curious, and a child will make mistakes, but also they will learn on their own. They can. And on my website, clearstate.net, you'll find articles on all these things. and little animations I've made to show these things happening and stuff like that. So another would be undermining the need for government watchdogs. So peer-to-peer review apps like Yelp, for example, Consumer Reports, that stuff already exists, but we can always make more of them, and we can always support the ones that do exist. And so stuff like that, it's, undermining is one word that's, but yeah, you guys get it, right? Okay, peer-to-peer sharing and trading, Bitcoin, Lyft, Uber, Airbnb. So there's already that kind of stuff that I think we can support and even create more of. And I'm working on something called Free Tribes right now. You could ask me about that. It's sort of a combination of all those things. And I'm welcoming and kind of help. Because right now I'm working on a promo so I can get money, like Kickstarter or whatever. Like I could write the whole app myself, but it would take years. So I want help. Security. Private security organizations, and we know those exist to some degree or other. So we can create more of those. We can support the ones that exist, so that people are less dependent on police, things like that. Finally, the last two: access to information. We have the internet, and I feel like I'm using up a lot of my time, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the last one, which is self-sufficiency. So there's a thing that, sometimes from the outside people will say, oh, you guys want everybody to be completely self-sufficient, and that would suck for people who can't hunt for their food or whatever. And of course we all know that's not the case, that we would be still specializing and relying on each other in various ways, interdependent. And that said, of course, I think it is better if we can all learn, or many of us can learn different things like gardening, martial arts, negotiation skills, sustainable living, all the things involved with that. So there's many ways that we can bring ourselves off of the grid and even be an example, even learn these things so we can teach other people, so we can be valuable in a certain kind of community. So that's the last item on my list, and I'd like to again ask for some questions or comments or whatever. So we had,
Could you repeat your website and how we can find more of your ideas and stuff?
clearsay.net.
Clearsay.net.
And that website is divided between nonviolent communication type stuff and voluntarism type stuff, and then the mix. And parenting stuff, unschooling, that's about it. Thank you. Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you're focusing on out of that list?
Biggest couple things. I'm creating an app that people can just type in some kind of statement, ideally something somewhat violent or challenging that somebody said to them, so I could paste in a text, and then it comes back the response. So somebody's like, "You're such an ass, your armpits always stink." Then it might come back with a suggested phrase like, "Oh wow, it sounds like you really value cleanliness or good smells." And so it empathizes, it's like judo, or it's more like Aikido for language, but it's also empathizing. So yeah, that app and the free tribes that I want to create.
You talked about supporting companies, namely Uber, but I've heard that they've been able to sidestep some things in the law. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. I actually drive for Lyft once a month just so I can stay being an employee. And it's kind of hard to even spend the time doing that, but I don't know. I know a lot about Lyft, but not as much about Uber. I mean, I've heard about different countries. Are you speaking of France, maybe?
Here in the United States.
And what kind of laws or rules?
God, what did I just say? I just heard that there are some things that, for instance, I know that Uber doesn't have to buy their vehicles and whatnot. So there's some things they've sidestepped there. They didn't really cater to people that were disabled, which is something that taxi companies have to do by law.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a few things that people were kind of not happy that Uber was doing, that other companies that were specifically taxi cab companies had to do.
Yeah.
So they basically paid people that were I guess people that were working for Uber, they also made a ton of money in the beginning. They were making like $70,000, $90,000, and then they ended up taking more of their money. So now they're basically, I'm quoting them, making next to nothing.
Mhm.
So it's, in my mind, I guess not as great as it once was.
So you want more fairness between the
Yes.
company and the drivers?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I bet there'll be a million people here that know, or 10, that know more about that than I do. Willing to talk to you about that. So any other questions or input?
Let's stay on the subject you mentioned, like education, dissemination of information, in general, ways to kind of, get around existing frameworks and say if you consider deleterious. Open source can be very good for all those things. Open source, not just code, but nearly anything. In fact, like documents, like CAD drawings, things like that. Because often, sometimes might be like the best defense against egregious use of patents possible. Like they make a copyleft or a viral license where you literally cannot illegally go and patent or use up being released of your own materials at a given time. So I just think it's like one sort of system seems to be working quite well already. That might be something we want to look into for a variety of materials.
Yay, yeah, because IP I see as something detrimental to our cause and humanity even. So any ways that people can fight against that. I'd rather think of a more peaceful way of putting that, but promote free flow of information. Would that be what you're saying?
Yeah, among other things, yes.
Yeah.
Plus,
yeah.
people always develop things. You get lots of ideas going in there at once.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of new to a lot of these ideas, but I am pretty familiar with Uber and a lot of union issues. I used to work for a company that made me deal with the union pretty frequently. And just to kind of touch on her point, like so the situation with Uber in California is one of the situations is a lot of the workers are saying, okay, we're working full time with you, we want benefits. And most other companies are required to provide benefits to their workers. So like I said, I'm kind of new to the ideas that you're bringing up, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on something like that, where you've got an organization that's consolidated a lot of resources through innovation and through their own means, but now they're sort of able to leverage those resources to take advantage of other people. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No.
My time is up.
Feel free to answer that question.
We'll say last question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that because again I'm not super familiar with them, and also I feel like I've used up my time.
Okay.
I'm happy to talk to you in person about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Scott. Now, next up we have Michael Fielding. And Michael would like to say that Michael lives in the woods.
Yeah, I live out in the forest on East Riverside, so it's my way of kind of protesting the title system. But I'll talk a little bit more about moments of anarchy.